Hey, welcome to Born Superhuman. Today, we have an incredible young lady with us, and I was fortunate enough to be on her podcast where we connected, and I got really curious about what Hannah does. And so I wanted to bring that to you today so that, again, curiosity is where we start the journey to improvement and new pathways. Before we start, I'd love to know, tell me about your childhood.
My childhood was beautiful. It was a little messy. It was a little hard. My parents got divorced when I was 6 years old. I love talking about trauma, whether we talk about it from a childhood perspective or an adult perspective. The important thing to remember about trauma for me is everyone has experienced trauma. It takes more work to allow yourself to not be the victim. And when you decide that life is not happening to you and it's happening for you, and you take that victim mentality off, that's a lot of work.
I'm Dan Metcalfe. Thank you for tuning into the Born Superhuman podcast. I'm so proud of the guests and stories that we bring to you, and I know that you'll enjoy what we have ahead. Please like, subscribe, and follow. It really makes a huge difference in our ability to continue these conversations being brought to you. And if you feel the passion behind Born Superhuman, please share it with your friends and family and leave a comment. I read every one. Now, let's get on with the show. Hey, welcome to Born Superhuman. Today, we have an incredible young lady with us, and I was fortunate enough to be on her podcast where we connected, and I got really curious about what Hannah does. And so I wanted to bring that to you today so that, again, curiosity is where we start the journey to improvement and new pathways. So with that saying, welcome, Hannah, to Born Superhuman.
Thank you so much for having me, Dan. It's such a pleasure to be on your podcast now.
Yeah, thanks so much. And I know that you've got a journey that really revealed where you or how you came to be where you are today. And we're going to get into that in a minute. But before we start, I'd love to know, tell me about your childhood.
Thank you for asking. That's a fun question. My childhood was beautiful. It was a little messy. It was a little hard. My parents got divorced when I was 6 years old, and they lived about, for my younger years, they lived about 20, 30 minutes apart from each other. So we spent every other weekend with my dad, and we had dinner with my dad once a week, and otherwise we were with my mom. And I say we, meaning my sister and I. And I think that's really the biggest, maybe, pain point of my childhood. If you come from a divorced family, I remember the hardest thing I had with the divorce was actually not having both of my parents tuck me in at night. And I remember crying every time I was at my mom's house that I wanted my dad to tuck me in, and every time I was at my dad's house that I wanted my mom to tuck me in. And I had a really hard time transitioning back and forth between those two households. But otherwise, there's so many blessings that came from that. One of the main things that I always love reflecting on is my mom was a nutrition major in college. So she has her undergraduate degree in nutrition. So as you can imagine, we had a great, nutritious, nourishing lifestyle growing up, and still continue that. And I really had great balance at my mom's house and then my dad's house, because my dad was the one that gave us the Frosted Flakes and Captain Crunch and corn dogs and Chuck E. Cheese and all of that. So we had a really nice balance growing up between having both lifestyles, I guess, two different lifestyles given to us, my sister and I. And I think that was actually really, really fun. And I think it also helped me create balance just from the nutrition standpoint, create balance in my life growing up too. And now how I incorporate that in my adult life. So that's a little bit about my childhood. I think I started with the pain points, but it was a really beautiful childhood. I feel very, very blessed. I think we talked about this before when you were on my podcast, but I feel very blessed to have been raised with so many tools that people may go their whole lives not being introduced to and not being able to live. And in that respect, I have a lot of admiration and respect for both of my parents and my stepdad. My stepdad raised us as well. I met him when I was, I think, 8 or 9 years old. And so I have a lot of respect and admiration and love for my family and those who raised me.
That's beautiful. It's great that you have that perspective, but I also know with your mission journey to well, which you lived and you help other people live as well, there has to be an emotional intelligence to be able to look at the things that happen and make them into a positive. One of the things that's really big topic and is becoming bigger and bigger is childhood trauma.
Hmm.
With that sacrifice of having to shift from one household to the other and missing certain, one parent, depending on where you were at. Did you ever address that, or was that something you were able to, as an adult, understand where it fit and you don't suffer from that in your adult relationships?
Mm, I love talking about trauma, whether we talk about it from a childhood perspective or an adult perspective. The important thing to remember about trauma for me is everyone has experienced trauma and everyone has something from their childhood or multiple things on different levels that they would probably consider trauma. And I think it's Gabor Mate says this, that trauma is not what happens to you, it's your interpretation and your body's interpretation of what happens to you. So I can't tell you what you experienced in your childhood was traumatic or not, and you can't tell me what was traumatic in my childhood or not, right? So I think when I was a child, I would not have the languaging to share, oh, this was traumatic for me, or my parents' divorce was traumatic for me, or going back and forth between the houses. It was really, I think, in adulthood that I began to process that and process my mom and dad had very different sets of tools. Um, and I think that really, at the end of the day, it does go back to what you shared of how we interpret it and how we interpret and then decide to move forward with our lives. And trauma is an interesting journey. I think we all kind of go through this like you're ignorant of it. You don't know what you're experiencing. And I think that's a very bodily response, a nervous system response, keeping ourselves, keeping our body and keeping our minds safe. Our body does that. And so we go through this ignorance, then we go through this aha moment, breakthrough moment that often leads to the immediate response of anger or maybe hurt, or maybe it's anger that's covering up the hurt and pain. And then we yell at our parents, right? Or we get so mad at our parents of like, you did this to me and you fucked up my whole life. Sorry, I swore on your podcast. And we go through this anger, and then hopefully we can arrive at this point of alchemy and processing what I have experienced and how has this actually served me and bettered me, and how can I take whatever happened to me, no matter what it is that we're talking about, and learn from it and grow from it. And in that regard, I did process that as a child because my mom, like this broken record playing in my mind, and I will always have it. She would always say, no matter what experience we were going through, whether it was a fight with my 6-year-old best friend or a fight with my sister or a bad grade, she would always ask us, my sister and I, what did you learn from this situation? What would you do differently? What can you pull from this situation? And I think that's really, when we're talking about trauma, when we're talking about life lessons or things that have happened to us in our lives, I think that's really the route that we have the invitation to arrive at. We don't always arrive here, but we have the invitation to arrive at this opportunity to ask ourselves, what did I learn from this? What would I do differently? What would I change? What would I keep the same? If I could do anything differently, what would it be? And how can I take this situation that has happened or occurred, and how can I grow from it, and how can I learn from it and do better, or mm, maybe not always do better, but how can I learn from it? And I think that definitely started in my childhood, and that has carried into my adulthood in every situation that I go through.
Yeah, what an incredible lesson, though, your mum taught you was to look at what you're learning. Because I have this philosophy, it's impossible to lose if we learn. Because if we're
Mm,
learning, you can't lose because we don't know the journey that life is going to take us on. And everything we build is the resilience to find the best in the path ahead. One of the questions, though, as you're speaking, when you train people and help people, wellness isn't just physical. In fact, more, in my opinion, is psychological, which affects the neurological that then has the outburst in physical, where people then
mm,
turn around and go, okay, how did I get sick? Well, it's not actually the physical, start. How do you train someone that prefers, or work with someone, I should say, that prefers to be sitting in the victimhood rather than realizing that they're made to be their own hero and inspire other people by going through the journey? Because I've got people that I know that prefer to blame and sit in
mm.
misery than to accept responsibility of the post trauma.
Mm, that's such an interesting question because I feel like a lot of those people don't come to me because it takes more work, right? It takes more work to allow yourself to not be the victim. And when you decide that life is not happening to you and it's happening for you, and you take that victim mentality off, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of excavation that then we have the opportunity to work through and to process and to learn from. And to come from that victimhood mindset, I have had a few clients, so I'm trying to think and kind of bring myself back to these moments. Ultimately, it starts with love. It starts with showing them a lot of love, modeling a lot of love, seeing if you can gently invite more love into the conversations, into your, like, my as a coach or as a guide, to invite more love into my being and to kind of model that. I often start a lot with, you said something interesting. It starts with mindset, then it moves into the neurological, which then is expressed through the physical. My business, my life, a lot of my work is in that middle neurological and nervous system and somatic spot. And one of the benefits of starting from a somatic perspective, even in terms of like victimhood, right, is that we can start to tune in to the nervous system. And when we tune into the nervous system, maybe we can create a little bit more space to look at that victim mindset, because we don't really know that we're playing the victim, I think, in the beginning. At least that's my experience with working with people, is they don't really recognize that they're not taking radical accountability for themselves. And the more space that we can create in our lives, and I'm really talking an energetic standpoint, the more space that we can create in our nervous system, what ends up happening is maybe we can create a little space to soften. And when we soften, then like we're getting in between the like shell of a crab or a lobster. And when we get in between the shell pieces, then we get to the flesh. And when we're able to get to the flesh in a, I keep saying safe, but in a way where we feel comfortable and held and allowed to be vulnerable, I think that's when we can then go to the mindset, almost revert, right? Reverse a little bit into the mindset and then go back to the somatic. And then we're going to get eventually to the physical expression, which actually ends up just correcting itself. Like I don't really focus so much. If you come to me like, I want to lose weight, which again is not necessarily what I do, but we're not going to focus on just exercise or just eating. There's so much before that we focus on. And then it's like, oh, I'm losing weight. Great.
That's beautiful. It's interesting because I'm a big believer that the way that your mother brought you up
Mm.
to look at the lessons that can be learned, what did we learn, has a certain wiring within the brain. So that becomes
Oh.
your subconscious to do that. And so many people, their subconscious, because of the way they were wired as children, is not even cognitively aware of within that individual. And then they end up loathing themselves instead of self love, which is for me critical. Self love is not selfish, it's the foundation of our own environment. What would you say do you find is the hardest point for someone that has had childhood trauma? What's the tipping point that you regularly see that people get to that and then go, now, I love your analogy with the crab. I'm like, then you get to the meat, then you get to the meat of the source, right? Now we can go to work
Mm.
because they've opened up enough. Is there a certain
Mm.
tipping point you find?
Mm. I think, Dan, really it is what you're saying and what I said with the self-love. If you think about trauma, and I am no therapist or psychotherapist, so this is my honest opinion. Take it with a grain of salt. If we think about trauma, whether or not you realize it or not, you on a somatic level are not feeling safe. Something is happening to you that may feel that you're not in control of. Like my parents' divorce, I had no control over that. I didn't choose that. I didn't want that. As children, oftentimes we think that we played a role in it. We think that we did something wrong, or maybe if I was a better kid, my parents wouldn't have fought, or we have all of these stories that we play in our mind. And when something traumatic happens to us, we often feel a lack of control and a lack of safety. And so, again, if we're going with the analogy of something with the shell, a turtle hears a loud noise, it gets scared, it's going to go right back in its shell as a protective mechanism. That's actually a really beautiful way that our bodies are protecting us and keeping us safe. But what happens with this lack of control, this fear, this feeling of unsafety, is we build these shells around us. We build these walls, we build these barriers, whatever languaging you want to use. And then we have this moment, and then we might walk around our whole lives. We might walk around for years. There's no time frame here. And then we decide, I'm fed up with the way that life is going, whether it's, and people come to me from all different places, right? So I feel stuck, I feel out of alignment, I feel burnt out, I feel like I hit this place in my life and I thought that I would be happier, and I'm realizing that I'm not happy. I feel like I need to switch my job or leave my career or leave my town that I'm living in or leave my partner. So we get this tipping point of frustration. And when we're able to meet ourselves, coming back to the self love, when we're able to meet ourselves in grace, in love, in this curiosity, you used one of my favorite words, like right off the bat earlier, when we're able to meet ourselves with curiosity instead of judgment, shame, guilt, anger, frustration, that often is that tipping point to be able to, again, create that space. And I think that doesn't, I don't think, I know, that doesn't come from me. It doesn't come from you if you are the one guiding. It doesn't come from the guide. But the beautiful part of working with guides or coaches or people that are able to create a container is that where you're held in that container so then you can create that space for yourself. And then those little pieces, those barriers that we've built up, those boundaries, those pieces of shell that we've built up that once kept us safe, we begin to realize, oh, some of these are not actually keeping me safe anymore. These are actually holding me back from fully being alive, from fully feeling, from fully embodying who I am and who I was created to be in this world and showing my light. And it all does start with love and curiosity.
It's interesting because I know your specialties, you have some areas that you're so passionate about. And I'm a huge agreement with you that often the issues we feel or see are not the source of the issue. And the results, for example, someone's not feeling well and they're trying all these medications or different therapies and I'm talking about physical therapies to get better. But when you go and release the emotional, the body's made to heal and starts working. Let's talk about breath work because I believe, and this is just my belief, breath work is critical in addressing trauma.
Yeah.
Tell us about your breath work and how that fits in with the modalities you use to help people live the journey to well.
Mm. You're so in tune. I really appreciate you as a host, I have to say, because that's exactly where we need to start before we get to the other conversations. Because breath work, I'm gonna keep using the word space. Breath work creates space and it physically creates space. So oftentimes I say breath work is very much like an active meditation because we live such busy lives and we don't take a lot of time to slow down, that when we do, because we hear meditation is so good for us, when we do sit down to meditate, our mind doesn't know how to shut off. You're actually kind of shocking your system. You're going from driving 100 miles an hour to stopping and going 0 miles an hour. And your mind's like, what? I'm not supposed to think. I'm not supposed to move. I'm not supposed to do anything. How do I do this? And so breath work, I find, is this really beautiful bridge between this really fast-paced world that we live in and creating some space, some opportunity to slow down in your body. So it feels often to a lot of people like an active meditation. The specific form of breath work that I am trained in is called somatic breath work. And it really, at the end of the day, teaches our body what's called nervous system regulation, which is this ability to build resilience in going into the sympathetic nervous system state, which is our fight or flight. It's not always a bad state to be in. We actually need to be in the sympathetic state to wake up, to go do our workout, to get to work, to have energy. It's what brings our body energy. When we're in these extremes of a very high sympathetic state or a very low parasympathetic state, really high is like anxiety, panic attacks, feeling burnt out. Actually, the parasympathetic would be feeling burnt out, but anxiety, feeling like very panicky, feeling like you can't slow down. And then the very low parasympathetic state is burnout, is depression. So we want to be somewhere in the middle most often. And breath work teaches us on a somatic level because we're actually doing it. We're not talking about it like you and I right now. We're having a beautiful conversation and talking about breath work, but you're not teaching your body anything because you're not actually doing it right now. So it teaches our body on a somatic level. I can bring myself up into a sympathetic state and I can bring myself down into a parasympathetic state, which is the medium level of parasympathetic is the ability to slow down and meditate, actually meditate for 20, 30, 40 minutes and not feel, and we've all felt this, not feel antsy, not feel very uncomfortable and feel like I can't shut off my mind. I have to go take care of the kids. I have to cook dinner. I have to figure out what I'm doing for tomorrow's lesson plan. And so somatic breathwork and breathwork in general often teaches us that way to regulate our bodies. And then hopefully we're able to carry that into our everyday life. So when you find yourself thrown into a stressful situation, because we can't avoid them, we're always going to have these stressful encounters, or you find yourself thrown into more like a forced rest, a forced parasympathetic state, You're able to regulate yourself and bring yourself back up or back down. And that's why actually our bodies already do this, but we don't always realize it, and we can't always assist our bodies the best when we're not aware of it. But when you're really stressed, you tend to, oh my God, I'm so stressed out. That's your body actually trying to regulate itself. And so when you practice this breathwork technique, when you practice breathwork, again, it's like this bicep muscle that you're building. You're working out your breathwork muscle. So then when you're in real life, just like you work out your bicep muscle and then you can carry more groceries in real life, carry more groceries into your house. Breathwork is the same way. You work your breathwork muscle. And then when you're in real life, your body almost automatically, I find myself when I'm stressed out, my body's like, and it takes a really nice calming breath. I'm like, oh, thank you, body. And then I do a few more. And then I find that I can bring myself back down.
Yeah, again, a lot of people are uncomfortable being relaxed, like you said so eloquently. We build ourselves into this system of go, go, go. And when we stop and then don't have to go, we force ourselves to go because of our comfort zone. Couple of things.
Mm,
You've used the word somatic probably
mm.
about 50 times so far during this talk. And there'll be a lot of people listening that don't understand somatic. Can you just explain what that is?
Thank you. Somatic, when we take somatic, Somatic, and we take the root of that, which is soma, Soma, soma is our body. So that is what somatic means. We have tons of somatic practices. For me, I might not have the most eloquent uh, dictionary-based definition of somatic, but for me, any somatic exercise is an exercise that we use to get back into our body, to feel your body. How often do we run around in our minds? We're running around at the gym, right? And we're listening to podcasts and we're working our minds, where our minds are spinning. We lay down in bed. Our mind is reviewing everything that we hated about today, everything that was stressful about today, and everything that we have to do tomorrow. And we're taking a shower and we're thinking about the kids that are running around outside the bathroom, screaming their heads off, and how you need to get out and help them create their bedtime routine or start their bedtime routine. So our minds are always running. Any somatic practice is to get back into the body. So breath work is one. We have a lot of like grounding exercises or some. A body scan is a really nice somatic exercise. There's coaches that are called somatic coaches or somatic experiencing, you might have heard of. These are all tools that we can use. Yoga, I would also argue, is a somatic exercise, depending on what kind of yoga you're doing. Meditation, you can do a meditation that is more body-based, kind of focusing on your breath, right? That's a somatic exercise. It doesn't have to be this big, fancy thing.
You said something that was really, grabbed my attention. Body scan. We naturally think a body scan is an MRI, it's a CAT scan. We're going into there where we got the external machines telling us. Tell the listeners a quick peek of body scan and how would they do that? Just give them a little teaser.
Yeah, let's do one. So while you're listening, and you do this too, Dan, if you're not driving, if you're able to close your eyes, it's easier to close your eyes, and this will be like 2 minutes. So if you can close your eyes for 2 minutes, close your eyes, take maybe a nice deep breath in, breath out, and just start at the top of your head. So what you're doing in your mind, in your attention, you're not touching the top of your head or anything. You're turning your attention to the top of your head, which would be your crown chakra if you're familiar with the chakra system. And just notice anything that you notice around the top of your head. Maybe where you are, there's a little bit of a wind or some moving air, and you can feel some air moving around the top of your head. Maybe if you move down a little bit to your forehead, you can notice if your muscles are contracted in between your eyebrows and you're furrowing your eyebrows at all. Maybe noticing any muscle tension or sensations that are going on in your face. Maybe your jaw is clenched. Maybe your eyes feel kind of tight or tired. And if you move down your body really slowly, almost like this like honey is oozing down your body from the top of your head, really slowly traveling down to your chest area, maybe noticing if you can feel your heartbeat, noticing if you can feel the areas of your neck that are exposed and the areas of your neck that are covered by some clothing, and traveling down maybe to your belly, noticing if you can just feel your stomach, exclusively your stomach or your abdomen area. Maybe noticing if you can feel your air, the air that you're breathing in, your belly expanding or deflating that you're breathing out. And then slowly traveling down maybe to your lower back. Noticing what sensations you notice. Maybe there's a little tension. Maybe it's a little sore or tight. Maybe it feels completely relaxed. And then moving down to your legs and seeing if you can perceive the tops of your legs. So above your kneecap, feeling the fronts of your legs, the backs of your legs, and then moving down all the way to your feet and seeing if you can feel where your feet land in this space and time. So maybe they're landing on the floor. Maybe you're laying down and they're landing, the heels are just landing on your bed or your couch, and your toes are sticking up in the air. And seeing if you can feel the fabric of the socks that you might be wearing. Seeing if you can feel the shoes surrounding your foot. Seeing if you can feel a temperature change. Maybe your feet feel warm or one foot feels warmer than the other. Noticing if you can just feel one big toe, your right big toe, without moving it. Just noticing if you can feel it. And then maybe taking a nice deep breath in again and letting it all out. That would be a very fast body scan. And that's an example.
Well, it made me realize how much tension I actually did have sitting here,
Yeah.
especially when we started talking on the face, and then just feeling the weight drop and the weight drop and the weight. And I just got back from speaking in Dallas, and I can feel the time change. I suddenly made me realize how much more attention I have to give to myself instead of go, go, go. So thank you for sharing that with us, and very relaxed. And I'm glad I didn't fall asleep while I was going through it because I got totally relaxed. But that was great.
That's
Thank
good.
you.
That's good.
So, and that comes down to, again, self-love is essential.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, and thank you again for sharing about breathwork because I'm a huge believer in it. And between, for some of those people that don't understand the difference between parasympathetic and sympathetic system is your stress, and there's good stress and negative stress. And parasympathetic, which almost seems back to front when we think of sympathetic, it should be the other way around, but parasympathetic is where we're in that relaxed state, in that calm state. And I loved the way you explained the ability to go from one to the other, and we're not governed by outside situations except in emergencies where we got the fight or flight because we have to move. And it is a talent to be able to do that. I can tell you're so relaxed that you've got this down. Before I jump on, because there was something else I want to go. As a child, I read that you did a lot of meditation. How much of that do you believe helped in your transition from childhood trauma and going into your own world and finding the truth for you there?
Mm. This is one of my mom's favorite stories to tell, but I was never good at math. I still don't think that my brain works that way very well. And I was struggling. We were learning the times tables, and I was struggling learning 7 times 7, 6 times 9. And she said, she came to me one day and she said, Hannah, this is not a punishment, but I want to experiment with you. I would like you to meditate with me every morning for the next month, 2 months. I don't know the time frame. And we're just going to see if it makes any difference. And so she would come wake me up every morning. I think we meditated for 20 minutes a morning. And some mornings I would fall asleep. Some mornings I would meditate with her. And her favorite part of the story is my grades got better. My math grades got better. Um, And it really did. And I think what my favorite part of that is that it gave me that tool again, learned. I actually did it. I didn't just learn about it in my mind and hear, read about how great meditation was. I actually practiced it and my body learned how it was helpful and beneficial. And so then for years in high school, I don't think I really meditated often. And then I found meditation again in college because I found myself in a high stress situation where I put a lot of pressure on myself to do really well in school and get good grades. And I grew up in New Hampshire and I went to college in North Carolina, not knowing anyone. So there was a lot of change, transition. And I started meditating every day again. And every time that I have had a consistent meditation practice, it's kind of hard to explain. Life just feels more in flow. Like you're cognitively more there. I feel clearer. I feel calmer. I feel more grounded, if that's a term that you resonate with or you understand. Ground, I feel more connected to myself. Um, and my grades always improved when I meditated. And in terms of the childhood trauma, I think what meditation for me has really gifted me is clarity. And I would assume, although I've never made this connection myself, like in terms of processing the trauma or processing anything that I've gone through, I would assume that it allows me to show up when I'm ready to do that work of processing, whether it's therapy, breath work, journaling, sitting with myself, sitting with someone else. It creates a easier ability to do that work and connect and to process because you've already taken that time to slow down your brain and create that space. I'm a little bit of a broken record with the space thing, but create that space because that's truly what meditation does. And that's the gift that it brings. I don't know if I answered your question, but that
Yeah,
was
no, but
that.
it's yeah, no, it's fascinating because I think, like you said, the more tools you have, the more work you're able to do effortlessly. And once
Mm,
you've got the work done, it's what's interesting for me is hearing the impact that your mother had on you with the processes that she used to help you, and then seeing you've transitioned that into your life, helping so many other
mm.
people, not knowing that that was going to be your journey. When you were a young girl, what was your dream? What was it that you thought you were going to become, or are you walking the journey that is a dream, princess as a young girl? You're like, this is what I want to do.
Whenever anyone would ask me, Hannah, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would always say I want to be a mom. And that's all I wanted to do was to be a mom. And I do not have physical children yet, and I still believe that I will. And that's still a dream in my heart. And I think a huge purpose of my life. I did not grow up thinking I would be a coach or a guide or anything even like my mom. I think, you kind of grow up and you're like, I'm never going to be like my parents. And the older I get, I'm like, I'm so much like my mom. And that is such an honor. In college, I think I really realized, and then a couple of years after, I realized that I actually felt this huge responsibility to share the gifts that I was blessed with from childhood. And you said something interesting earlier of it's kind of this subconscious programming and how we're raised plays a huge role in our mindset and our programming. And that doesn't mean that you're always in control and you can always change your mindset and you can always reprogram your brain. And so don't hear this and feel like, oh, well, I had the shittiest childhood and now I'm just fucked. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. But I do recognize that I am very blessed in the mindsets that I was taught from a young age. And I realize that that's what I want to bring. If I could introduce one person to a new technique, if the way that I explain breath work is finally the way that you hear it and it clicks and then you decide to try it, that's my purpose in life. Um, And so it's a huge honor. It's a huge honor to do what I do. And it was not what I expected, I think, what I would do when I was a child. But if you want to get really deep, I mean, I'm sure I kind of mother people in my business, and the energy, the feminine energy of a mother is uh, very much throughout my business and how I approach my business. So I guess we could go kind of there too.
Yeah, I love getting into who we are. And so
Mm,
we have jobs and we have work, and it doesn't always reflect who we are at our core because we're making a living. But to me, having this conversation, it really feels like you were born and grew up to do what you're doing. So congratulations, which brings me to the next thing. This is fascinating. Human design. So many
yes.
people, I was only introduced to it, not too long ago, and so many people have never heard of it.
Mm.
Let's talk about human design 'cause I know you're so passionate about it. Take us away.
Mm. I know, like we're about to go on another whole journey. I get very passionate about the things that I'm very passionate about, and breathwork is one of them. Human design is another one. So human design, if you've never heard of it, human design is a tool to learn about your unique blueprint. And so it pulls from pieces like astrology, the I Ching, the Kabbalah, quantum physics, and it creates, you need your birth time, location, and your birth date. And so it kind of pulls from the alignment of the stars, all of these different pieces, and it gives you this blueprint of your energy, how you were created to move through this world, your personality, the areas, the way in which your energy most easily flows, the areas in which your energy is most easily aligned. So we have internal markets and deep valleys and the ocean and caves, and so we have all of these pieces of human design, how you most easily digest information and food, where your energy most where you have a thing called your environment. So do you do really well when your environment is shifting or when your environment stays the same? And there's all of these pieces of human design that really, to me, and I have a maybe a different perspective of human design. It's not me telling you or human design telling you who you are or how you need to show up. It's a opportunity to look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, does this feel connected to me? Does this feel like it's in alignment of who I am at my core? And often, sometimes we can look back at our childhood, like, is this how you were when you were a child? Because conditioning is a whole other conversation we can have in human design. But what it gives you when we go back to the self-love conversation, and this is really what human design gifted me at its core, was it provided an opportunity for me to accept myself how I was and not judge and not guilt and not shame. So I'll give you an example because that's a very broad term or a very broad sentence. I was raised, my mother is a projector. I am a manifesting generator. These are energy types in human design. These are just terms in human design. When we're raised by someone that's different than us, which is pretty much all the time, or when we're growing up with a sibling who is different than us, the example that I'll give with the projector and the manifesting generator is my mom would always say to me when I was in college, I worked no word of a lie, 3 different jobs, going to school full time while I was in school. When I came home for Christmas break and summer break, I worked at least 2 different jobs, all 4 years of undergrad. And I thrived through college. I loved my college years. But my mom would always say, Hannah, you always do so much. You always spin so many plates. And when she would say that, it would make me look at myself and say, oh my gosh, am I doing too much? Like, is something wrong with me that I am doing all of these things? Like, am I going to burn out, or am I doing too much? Or am I throwing myself into this weird state? Or why am I doing so much? It made me ask so many questions and doubt myself. Fast forward, I learned my human design. Manifesting generators do really well when they are spinning a lot of plates. We tend to have a lot of interests in like different pots, and we tend to have like a diverse array of interests. Projectors have, projectors are, how do I want to explain this simply? Projectors are not created that way. Projectors might do better doing one thing at a time. And their battery level, like their physical battery level, is a little bit smaller, where they do much better when they have space in their day to rest, recharge, and then continue on the thing. So one of my exes was a therapist, and he's a projector, and I would always recommend to him, like, make sure that you take a little time in between your therapy sessions, like go lay on the couch, go for a walk, whatever recharges you, because going from one thing can be very, very draining for a projector versus a manifesting generator. If you're doing what lights you up and what brings you energy, we have a little bit of a longer battery life, if that makes sense. So human design is this opportunity to give yourself the permission slip to see yourself in your authenticity, in your authentic energy, and that being okay and accepting that. And we live in a world where everyone is trying to tell us what the right thing is. This is the right way to lose weight. This is the right way to sleep. This is the right way to eat. This is the right job to have. This is the right house to buy. And we very rarely are gifted this invitation to question, is this the right way to sleep for me? Is this the right way to eat for me? Is this the right way to move through my day? And human design is that opportunity to look at, oh, maybe this might be a little bit better for you. Maybe eating in a quiet environment is better for you. Maybe eating during the day in the sunlight is better for you than eating late at night. And actually, we have an indirect light human design type, which is a whole conversation, because it's better to eat during the day. But it's really this beautiful opportunity to take, I said this earlier, take accountability for yourself, and to really ask yourself and look at, this might be a little bit of a better way. My energy might flow a little more easily with this tool in this method.
Yeah, it's really gifting you what you are going to thrive with the most. Like you said, society has told us this is the way to do this. And I'm a huge believer we're all unique and individual, and we will match with certain people in certain arenas. But the chance of actually matching with someone in every arena is almost impossible, from the point of view that we all grew up and have our own biological clocks and neurological, psychological. How long does it take to do that human design scan, test, evaluation would probably the word I'm looking for? And is it simple? How accurate is it? Because we hear of so many different, I can just say it, a lot of people are coming out with a lot of different things to make money. But I know human design, the more I've read about it, it's been around for quite a long time. It just hasn't been fashionable. So tell us, what does it take? How long does it take to do that? And then once you got the information, what have you seen the changes in people's lives?
Good questions. So you can pull your chart just like you can pull your birth chart in astrology. So you literally can Google free human design chart. You put in, one of my favorites is My Human Design by Jenna Zoe. Not affiliated with her in any way. I just think that her interpretation of how she shares the information is very concise and easy to digest. But you can pull your human design chart anyway. All you put in is your birth date, your birth time, and your birth location, and it will come up with this slew of information. You have an actual body graph chart, so you'll see a picture of what kind of looks like a body. It doesn't look exactly like a body. And then you'll have all of this other information. So pulling it is very easy. Interpreting it and learning it is a little bit layered. And I believe one of my gifts is making these big, confusing topics easily digestible. So I'm going to tell you, start with your energy type, which is going to be one of 5 energy types: projector, reflector, manifesting generator, generator, or manifester. Start with your energy type, your profile, which you're going to see 2 different numbers. It's going to be like 2 numbers, like 2, 4, 1, 3, 6, 2, and your authority. And your authority is going to say something like emotional, sacral, splenic, mental, G center. There's 7 different authorities. Start with those 3. Don't go any further. Don't get overwhelmed by the picture of the body graph chart. Don't look at the arrows above your head space. Don't look at your digestion type, all of your numbers, which there's a bunch of numbers, which some people call gifts or gates. The technical term is gates. Don't look at any of that. Start with, pull your chart, say you're a manifesting generator. Then go on YouTube, go on a podcast. I happen to have a podcast that talks about human design. Go on Google and search human design manifesting generator energy type. And whatever way you process information most easily, if you like hearing it, if you like reading it, if you like watching videos, and start there. Just learn a little bit, see what comes up, see how you align with it, see how you feel about it.
Before we move on, share the name of your podcast, because sometimes we go, oh, we'll get to that at the end, but someone just heard it because, okay, I'm interested now. And I'm a big believer, go to the experts, because we don't know what we can trust that's online as well. And you're obviously an expert. What's your podcast?
My podcast is Journey to Well. And I have, if you search, I have at least 2, and I can send you these if you want to link them below. I have at least 2 that are like intros to human design conversations. And this is where we're going over literally those 3 things that I talked about. And I think there's actually one that just goes over the energy types. And we just talk about manifesting generator, generator, projector, reflector, manifester. But yeah, look at Journey to Well. That's my podcast.
That's great. Thanks for that. What then is the effect? Because I've done this, all done it. We go in there, we do our assessment, and then we don't do anything with it. Okay, well, that's great, but I'm caught up in the busyness of life. Then you have the information, which is useless if you don't use it. So what is the results people could expect that you've seen with the clients that you've worked with that people could expect themselves if they're willing to do the work?
What I've really created the human design aspect of my business around is, and really the clients that I end up working with, is people that feel stuck. I use the word misaligned, but we might not always use that word. But you feel like you're just missing something. Like, I just got this big promotion at work. I thought I would be happy and I'm just not. Or I just got this big promotion at work and I know that there's no way in heck that I'm going to be able to keep this up. It's unsustainable how I'm working right now. Or I feel like all of my relationships are repeating a lot of the same patterns, and I'm recognizing that, which is beautiful, but I don't know how to change it. Or I feel like I'm just like a hamster running on a wheel, and that wheel is just not moving, bro. I don't know how much faster I can run. And those are the clients that I work with. And I really, really don't want this to come across, and this is not my heart. I don't want this to come across as work with me, because I'm not saying that. But I will say, when you are ready, one of the biggest benefits is having someone, and it could be me, could not be me, having someone in human design help you connect the dots of how you can apply your human design into your life. And maybe you can do this by yourself, and that would be beautiful. I find that we're created for community, and we're created for tribe and reaching out for help when we feel like overwhelmed. And really what you're doing when you decide to work with a coach, no matter who it is you're carving that time to be with yourself for an hour. a week or an hour a month, whatever that is. And when you create that time, that's where the integration happens. And that's one of my favorite things because I do intro to human design chart reading. So I'll tell you all about really the how your human design chart connects. So we go over the energy type, right? But then how does your energy type connect to your authority? And how does your authority show up in your life? And how might connecting to your authority, which is the way that you best make decisions, how could connecting to your authority show up in your business, in your life, or whatever? So I do the intro pieces where I do a lot of talking, but my favorite part is when I work with clients long term, like for 6, 8 weeks, and we get to have these conversations of how can I integrate this into my life? Because it's not about huge shifts. It's not about big changes. It's about small changes that feel very easy, that feel very able to approach. And that's really where the magic is in human design, because we do have a lot of tools today that, you know, do this thing in the morning for 30 minutes. And, I don't know, there's so many tools today. And human design, also, I think one of the benefits of human design is that it's working with your energy. So like we kind of talked about before with the diet thing, right? Like if you've ever tried a diet and you're just like, I was so gung ho because this coach, this person that I learned this diet and this lifestyle from, they lost 100 pounds and I really thought that I would do it. And I stuck to it. And I forced myself to stay aligned for that month. And I don't see barely any progress. Maybe the way that diet and that lifestyle, that exercise pattern, whatever, maybe it just didn't work for you. And that doesn't mean that you're a failure. That doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. It means it worked for them and that's why they shared it. But maybe that's not your energy type. Maybe that's not your human design. And so it should feel very easy. It's not making these big shifts that we're like repatterning habits or repatterning we're going against the grain. When you begin to flow with the current, you just flow, right? If you're floating down a river, you just flow. But when you're fighting against the current, it's a lot of work. And there's a lot, and you're like, maybe if I swam faster, maybe if I swam harder, maybe if my legs were stronger, maybe if I kicked faster, I would be able to do it. But when you're with the current, you don't have to think about, maybe if I swam faster, or kicked harder, or had stronger legs. You just are carried down there.
Yeah, it's a great point. Again, a lot of good points here today because I feel that, of course, every program is going to promote their highest success because people want to achieve the highest level of success. And it's very hard to find the honesty in advertising these days because we can state certain things. And I'm always coming from the truth. For me, I have to because I want people to know the realistic side of things. And again, when it's programmed for you, in other words, it's personal to you, the chance of success certainly rises a lot more than a generic follow this program without really going into the depth. Do you find, and this is my experience, on the physical side, I used to have a lot more men that would want training on the physical side, but then on the emotional EQ side, it was women that led the way. Do you find with your clients that you have more women that are getting involved with this human design to find out who they are? Because sometimes men don't want to because they have to admit they're wrong. But do you find that the results for those men is even more dynamic than a lot of women because there's such a difference in the shift?
Interesting question. The majority of my business is women, and it's mostly because I market to women because I like working with women. In my business, the most men that I work with is actually in breathwork, which I think feels a lot more approachable to them. And, it's kind of a little bit better known. It's not as woo-woo. Human design might sound a little woo-woo to you, especially when I say it pulls from astrology. And the men that I have worked with human design have been mostly at that intro level of this is your human design chart. this is, how you can begin to integrate it. I don't have many that I've worked with in my package option with like the integrative package option. Um, are there bigger shifts? To be honest, the intro sessions I very much view as this is information and you're going to process it on your own terms, and you're going to gain a lot from it because you have that information. But then where do you go? What do you do with it? I don't always see that part of the journey if we're not working together after that call. So I don't get to witness like the shifts that they experience in their life often. Um, so I can't really answer that question fully, I think. Yeah, I can't answer that question fully.
No, I love it though, because I do believe there's a big shift that's going on in the male side of the world to say it's okay
Mm,
to be emotionally vulnerable. It's okay to find out. I grew up in a very machoistic environment where we were fighters, and if you didn't fight or if you showed emotion, I learned to shut off my emotion
yeah.
because then it was a sign of weakness. And I think that the beautiful change, and the world's in a flux right now because people are stuck identifying who they are and staying true to them and not getting caught up in this flurry. But one of the great
Mm,
things I think men are realizing, it's okay to be vulnerable. It actually makes you stronger and more powerful when you can address who you are and why you're the way you are. And then, like you said,
mm,
the beautiful thing, how do you flourish?
mm.
What do you feel listeners should know that you've learnt that tends to be a sticking point or a holding back point from living the life we're born to live? And I'll just let you pick up on that. There's something that I believe huge. I spoke about it this weekend. We're not defined by what we've done at
Mm,
all. We're not defined by what we do with what we've done will become our legacy. And I really felt that as you were talking, that came up in me again because having the information is one thing. That's we've done the test. What we do with what we've done will be the legacy of our life.
mm.
What do you think? Going back to my question, what can people, or what do you find is the biggest shift in the change that you've experienced and that would make people say, I need to do this?
The biggest thing is that we might not recognize it, but Tony Robbins says that one of our core wounds, we all have a core wound, and one of the core wounds is this belief that we're not enough. And for me, we all have tools of how we can arrive at I am enough. And for me, human design and breathwork, for different reasons, have allowed me to arrive at the knowing on a somatic level. I'm going to say it again, on a body level, not just logically knowing, not me telling you, Dan, you're enough. You're enough.
Mm,
You're like, yeah, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. But nobody can tell you that you're enough and you believe it until you tell yourself that you believe it. And these tools of human design and breath work have allowed me to find that knowing that there's nothing wrong with you, that the way that you do something doesn't mean that you are weak or something's wrong or you should do something a different way. And we all, because it's one of our core wounds, and I really do believe that we all live in that, we all have that wound of thinking or believing that we're not enough to some extent. It gives us that invitation. Human design and breathwork give us those invitations to start to shift that mindset and that core belief and start to heal that core wound of not being enough. I'm not good enough. I don't have the right tools to be in the right relationship. I'm not smart enough to be a CEO. I can't be a good enough mom. Whatever it is, whatever you believe that you're not enough in, or just the core belief of just not being enough, like I'm not good enough for this or that. When we the way that we heal that is to slowly begin to realize that all parts of you, every aspect of you is created perfectly. And there's been people, often it's people, that have told you at some point in your life that you're too loud, that you do too many things at once, that you are too happy, that you are not smart enough, that you don't learn in this way, and this is the right way. And human design begins to allow that space to unravel that, and then to begin to maybe, hopefully, start believing that exactly how you are is enough. And because you're created this way, that makes you enough, and that makes you a valuable person in this life. And all of your pieces is what makes you superhuman, that makes you amazing and incredible. And there's nothing that you have to change.
I love that transition. And I wasn't thinking of this, but I think that's such an important message for us to end on because I think there's
Mm,
so much more. I want people to search you out and learn. We can give all the information, but there's so many people that live beneath what they know's inside them. That little
mm,
girl that dreamt of being the princess and living the dream, the young boy who had these visions and got beaten down from multiple different sources potentially, but still knows they're in there. That little boy, that little girl is still inside you, waiting to be unleashed into the adult boy. I've loved what you've said and what you've shared today. It's been beautiful. We're so aligned. The more you talk, the more I'm like, we are so aligned. So I know you talked about having just come back from a retreat and you take ladies and put them into a self environment. Tell us about the retreats you do because it sounds glorious.
Thank you for asking. It is. Oh my, it's somebody asked me what my favorite piece of my business is, and truly it's these retreats. Um, it's called Remember and Reclaim. The woman that I co-host this retreat with, she's also a breathwork practitioner, and we decided to name it Remember and Reclaim because there's so many pieces of us that we have forgotten that in your languaging make us superhuman, that are our secret sauce. And we have this opportunity on the retreat to sit with ourselves, to be witnessed by these other incredible women. It's a women's retreat, not to exclude men, I'm sorry. But a lot of my work is working with women, and I feel very called to work with women. Um, and then remember these pieces of ourselves and then reclaim them, to step back into our power, to step back into our authenticity and to be empowered. And truly, I mean, this is such a vulnerable time for me to record a podcast because my heart has just been split wide open from this past weekend. And you know, the most beautiful piece, we've talked about breathwork today, we've talked about human design. The most beautiful piece of breathwork in my personal journey when I went through my training was being witnessed by someone else. We did this practice where we walked through a breathwork journey. So I was the one doing the breathwork journey, and I had a partner, and it was a male. We just partner up. And he just sat there next to me for an entire hour and just witnessed, held my hand, touched me when I cried, helped me get deeper into the breathwork journey, gave me some cues of support and to excavate what was down below the surface. And I remember coming out of that journey, and the most monumental piece of that, the most transformational piece, was to be witnessed and to be able to hold space and witness people, to as the space holder for the retreat, to be able to witness these beautiful, beautiful women in all of their vulnerability, in their tears, in their happiness, in their grief, in their fear, in their joy, in their dancing, is the greatest honor of my lifetime. And it's also one of the most transformational pieces that I would argue that you'll ever go through in your life, is to be truly witnessed in all of you, in all of the ugly, in all of the beauty, in all of the hurt, in all of it, all pieces of you, all parts of you. And I don't know, obviously I'm tooting my own horn, but I think that our retreat is absolutely transformational, and it's really intimate. We actually don't take more than 5 women at a time, so it's a very intimate experience, and being able to sit together in sisterhood and with like-minded individuals. Yeah, that was a long answer, but thank you for asking. It was such an amazing experience, and every year we're actually going to be doing them twice a year, but every season I feel like it could not possibly get any better than this. It couldn't, and then it does.
Well, where are they held?
They are held. So this was the first time we did it at my family's lake house up in Maine. So
Okay.
about
It's
3 hours past Portland. But you know what's interesting, Dan, is like I think talking about human design, learning your sweet spot, especially if you're a business owner listening to this, we're taught, right? The more people, the more money you're going to make. So find as many people as you can. And I am not a large community space holder. I think that's beautiful. I've been in large communities before, and there's a lot of power in that. I really settle into the intimacy of small groups. So even my women's circles that I hold every month and my breathwork journeys, I really don't hold more than 10 people at a time. But for me, what that gives me is this ability to really hold you, and not just give you 30 seconds of my time and then move on because I have 30 people to get to. So yeah, but it's held up in Maine, and it's a lake cabin, and I mean it's beautiful, and my family's energy is just infused in it because my stepdad grew up there, and his family's energy, and it's a really sacred place, and like the energy of the lake, it's ineffable. You can't describe it, but it's a very sacred place and a very special environment to hold this cocoon for women to transform.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. I think it's so important to get back to nature. That's what we're made. When we have these retreats that go into hotels or man-made environments. And for me personally, I never have the same experience as I do when I go back to nature. And so I can understand 100% what you're saying. It's beautiful.
Mm, thank you. Yes, it's amazing.
There's one thing I'd love for you to finish with, though. If you could leave one message to those listening that would be your legacy for the world. And it's a heavy question because I don't prepare. I didn't say think of this and come up. This is really from your soul. And take a moment to think about it. There's no rush answer. What would that one message be that you would want to be remembered for the impact it has on people?
So I think the one thing that I would like to have, the one thing that I would like to be remembered most by, I heard this prayer, and it's called the Medicine Woman's Prayer. And I think underlining everything that I do, everything that I am, every way that I show up is this prayer. So I would like to read it to you. It says, I will not rescue you, for you are not powerless. I will not fix you, for you are not broken. I will not heal you, for I see you in your wholeness. I will walk with you through the darkness as you remember your light. And that is the legacy that I want to carry, that I would love to leave with this world, is there's no one that's going to be here to fix you or heal you or make you enough. But if I could help just one person on their journey to remembering their light, to remembering that they are already whole, that they're not broken, that they're already healed, that would be the legacy that I would want to leave.
It's beautiful. Hannah, you got such a peace about you, got such a kindness, such a warmth, such a calmness that I could imagine anyone working with you is going to be able to add that to their life. But
Mm.
thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom at such a young age. And I have no doubts you'll be impacting and affecting so many people on your journey of life that your legacy will be far exceeded.
Hmm. Thank you, Dan. This was such an honor, honestly, to have a conversation with you. So thank you for your time and thank you for having me on.
We'll drop everything into a link so everyone knows where to find you, how to find you. And
Thank,
again, thank you so much. Have a beautiful rest of the day.
thank you, you too.